www.bayhillnews.net is the parent body of Bay Hill News Network. We do Facebook Live for church service, funeral service, lecture, sporting activity. For more, contact at bayhillnewsnetwork@gmail.com or call 1784-529-8340.
St. Vincent, my homeland.
On April the 9th, 2021, La Soufrière volcano in St. Vincent and the Grenadines violently erupted, and the words of Black Stalin came flowing through.
Our country it's got its power, so our people need us today more than ever. But in our fight to recover, if ever you feel to surrender, it have one little thing that I want you always remember.
My name is Jim Lewis, President of St. Vincent and the Grenadines Association, Toronto, Inc., and I encourage you to donate generously.
I love you, St. Vincent, me sweet little island, St. Vincent.
Now with ice-cold local juices to go with our rich and tasty authentic Vincentian meals made affordable, it's the award-winning Phoenix Kitchen, open 7 days with extended hours on Friday and Saturday. Juices included Marby, lemon lime, passion fruit, bell apple, golden apple, cherry, mango, Marby, linseed, carrot, beetroot, fruit punch, and sea moss. For further information, call 455-1280. That's right, a bigger meal awaits you now with fresh, cold local juices. Phoenix Kitchen. Let the phoenix arise in you.
Great news! Spectra Plus is now rolling out internet and TV services in St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Yes, better service and better prices from the new and improved Spectra Plus. Spectra Plus TV plans for $59.99 per month. VAT included. Adult TV 3 channels plus $29.99. For more information, call 1784-534-2551 or 1784-532-2501. Fast, reliable broadband and television services for your home or business. Spectra Plus TV, internet, better. Ship your barrels and household effects to St. Vincent and the Grenadines with SVG Direct. Jumbo barrels $70, medium $60, and small $50. We ship anything, name it, we ship it. Vehicles and more. Local agent, Adams Customs and Shipping Agency, 3rd floor, Baines Building, Kingstown, SVG. Telephone 1784-458-1328. In Canada, contact Michael 647-569-3285. Jumbie 647-657-7362. Remember, it's free pickup at your convenience 7 days per week anywhere in the Greater Toronto area with SVG Direct.
Nice Radio's Kalulu presents Just Another Look. Just Another Look is an innovative, exciting, albeit decidedly provocative and yes, certainly controversial, socio-political analysis of issues of a local, regional, and international nature. Just Another Look is heard only on Nice Radio. First aired on Saturdays at 6 p.m. with repeat broadcasts on Sundays at 9 p.m. Remember, you can always catch us on the World Wide Web, www.niceradio.info. We are also on Facebook and YouTube. I am, of course, Keith Joseph. Today, dear friends, is Saturday. It is the 22nd day of May, 2021. Welcome to another edition of your favorite program, Just Another Look. Eyewitness News, the edition of 13th May, 2021, carried an opinion piece from one Heidi Badnock. And if you read the opinion piece, you should be moved to reflection. You should be motivated to critical thinking. And you should be empowered to act. Because in the opinion piece, the writer Heidi Badnock raised a number of issues that suggest we as a people should learn from the experience of the La Soufrière eruption. And we should become far more proactive in the way in which we analyze our situation and the way in which we are motivated to act as a people, as a Vincentian people, committed to developing St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Not the mammagism that you get from the politicians, but the genuine development of our people. Because the understanding must be that the development of a country, the development of a society, is not a task for the politicians alone. It is a task for every Vincentian. Politicians are elected to help in facilitating the process. Unfortunately, many of them seem to think that they are the be-all and end-all of the development process. Unless we as Vincentians become totally engaged in the development process, there can be no development. Why? Because development is about people. It is about the well-being of people. It is about ensuring that as a society, we move towards equity. We move towards fairness. We are always motivated by justice. So more than anything else, this excerpt from Heidi Badnock, carried in Eyewitness News of the 13th May 2021. More than anything else, the excerpt from her concluding paragraph, we at Just Another Look, find most appropriate. And therefore we urge listeners to take it with the utmost seriousness. She wrote, and we quote, "We as a people have once again been granted a golden opportunity as we were in 1979, where the heart of our country was purged through ash. Mother Nature has now given us a chance to rechart our paths, redirect our course, and rise up from the ash that covered our blessed land, remembering the words of Errol the Man Age, we have a country to build." End of quote. Dear listeners, there is so much merit in this excerpt from Heidi Badnock. Mother Nature has now given us a chance to rechart our paths, redirect our course, and rise up from the ash that covered our blessed land, remembering the words of Errol the Man Age Rose, we have a country to build. You know, it is unfortunate because there was a time when Gonzalez, before he became Prime Minister, kept boasting about how Calypsonians are the people's spokesperson. But all of that changed, apparently, when the Man Age wrote his Calypso piece following Gonzales having taken him across the sea, what we at Just Another Look labeled the bridge over troubled water. And after that, Age, it is almost as if Age became public enemy number one, simply for articulating what Gonzales had always said, the Calypsonian being the people's spokesperson. And if you remember that Calypso, is that Age was essentially saying, but who else did he expect to build it? That is the work of government. And Age has since penned a number of pieces. But Age's "We Have a Country to Build" is a Calypso masterpiece. It is a call to action, calling all Vincentians, put aside your differences and understand clearly we have a country to build. If we want it to be the best that it could possibly be, it can only be done if we do it together. But Age is apparently persona non grata as far as the ULP is concerned. He's no longer important. He was important perhaps when he was critical of the opposition or the former government, which now in opposition, the NDP. But Badenoch cited Age, one of this country's most proficient and prodigious Calypsonians, clearly a spokesperson of the people, a man committed to the oppressed peoples. Age's words, "We have a country to build," are immortalized in more ways than we as a people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines are willing to admit. Is he wrong in suggesting or insisting that we have a country to build? Is he wrong? Of course not. That's why we sought independence, so that we as a people can take control of our society, take control of our resources, and use it for the betterment of all Vincentians, not a select few. We do have a country to build. But knowing that we have a country to build is not enough. Importantly, we need to know who is willing to build the country. Not the graft and corruption that we are seeing around us. Who are willing to come forward, to hold hands, and collectively construct a Vincentian society for all, not the select few. Because if you are willing to do that, you can never stand up in front of a convention and say, we must own the jobs too, because that excludes a significant proportion of the population. And if we go by the outcome of the most recent general elections, it excludes the majority of the electorate from the process of accessing jobs, because you alone must own the jobs. That is not how you build a society. So who is willing to come forward to be part of that process of building the country? That is the single most important question. Because if you analyze the past 20 years, if you critically analyze the mode of operation of the ruling political administration of this country for the past 20 years, you're almost certain to conclude, unless you're on the gravy train, that they are willing to engage their supporters, members of the party, members of the ULP, to be the sole builders of this party, of this country, and therefore the sole beneficiaries of this country, of this country's largesse. In the business of building anything of significance, there must be a firm stance on transparency at all levels of the process. That is critically important. Transparency. And with that, accountability. Over the past several years, the people of this country have literally been begging the Unity Labour Party administration to be transparent. Please, be accountable. But unfortunately, alas, the concepts of transparency and accountability do not appear to be in the ULP's lexicon. You have a prime minister who was once Minister of Finance and who said, you see how we do things, we take a little bit from here and we put it over there, we take a little bit from over there and we put it over there. When we know, for example, that a number of international donor agencies says, hello, if you ask for this to do that, you cannot change it. You can't take it from there and put it over here. That is not how business is done. That is not how they operate. Because that is not planning. That is slipshod nonsense. You don't construct a society by taking a little bit from here and putting it over there, a little bit from over there and putting it over there, take some from over there and bring it here, etc., etc. Who does that? But if the Prime Minister can actually articulate that as a mode of operation, governing a country, managing an economy, is reflective of where we are as a society. We have a country to build. The ULP administration has revealed itself to be deaf to the cries of Vincentians for transparency and accountability. From day one, people have been trying to get the Unity Labour Party to be transparent and accountable. And perhaps the first mistake was to dare to hold up the 2001 manifesto against their performance in the first 5 years. And within that first 5 years, well, actually they had election in 2001 and election in 2005. So the first 4 years, the promise of integrity legislation, nothing. They found out the foolhardiness of talking the rubbish about building a cross-country road. You're not talking about that now, eh? After Soufriere Europe, you ain't talking about that at all, at all, at all. No, for sure, you're not talking about it. But people told you that. So from day one, using their own manifesto, people have been asking, hello, do you want us to talk transparency and accountability? How about looking at what you promised to do? Where is the contract with civil society? Civic society, where is the contract? It was a nice sounding piece of political trite, hastily put together before the elections of 2001. And that's it. That's just where it is, gathering dust. Gathering dust. Where is the much vaunted integrity legislation? Gathering dust. Where is the transparency in respect of what you were seeking to do with putting an end to corruption? Where? In the dung heap of Vincentian political history. Because your much vaunted, much promoted inquiry into the Otley Hall came to an abrupt end. Why? Why? Because the Privy Council, not many of our courts in the region, the Privy Council end up telling you what all of us knew simply from reading the interim report, that there was clear evidence of bias. And no, nobody else wanted to see it. Because in your own understanding of how transparency and accountability is supposed to work, they could go to whatever courts they want, and when they finish, they must come back to Papa. Judge, jury, and executioner. You see, dear friends, the party and the party in government are deaf to the cries of Vincentians for transparency and accountability. And this is the reason that many Vincentians are hopeful that given the engagement of several international agencies in analyzing the damage wrought to this country by the eruption of La Soufrière, and the engagement in the rehabilitation and rebuilding processes, that there will be enforced transparency. Because if there isn't, then those international agencies will be blackguarded for not doing what they're supposed to do. You know, there was a time when the radical left in this region claimed that international aid could be defined as taking from the poor in rich countries to give to the rich in poor countries. We will see whether that obtains in this case. We will see. This is not like the old time days. Everybody has access to a cell phone. Everybody has access to a phone that takes pictures and videos. And that is why you see so much information being paraded that we never used to get so frequently before. It has pushed people on the back foot in terms of how they do things, when they do it, and where. And this time, the international agencies will have to ensure that they don't play namby-pamby politics with the politicians, but that they have come here to help Vincentians do what Manage said we need to do. We have a country to build. If you're not going to be party to that, we will let the world know. We will let the world know. There has to be transparency and accountability in this rehabilitating process. Badenoch tells us we can come out of the ash deposited by La Soufrière this time around better persons and come together to create a better society. We have a country to build. You see, Vincentians have grown tired of the lack of transparency and accountability on the part of the ruling regime in this country over the past 20 years, that they will, as a people, closely monitor the performance of the government, the performance of the party in government, the performance of the several international agencies that are engaged now and for the foreseeable future in the rehabilitation process in this country, to ensure that everyone is decidedly transparent and held accountable to the people of this country, not just to the government. This is a very small country. News travels fast. And that is the reason that people have been hesitant to accept the line that the ruling regime is about all Vincentians. The evidence does not speak to that. The single largest capital project in this country was the Argyle International Airport. It was transformed into a party project, not a national one. That has been the case. That has been the approach. It is about the party. It is not about the country. Time and again, in the aftermath of disasters, over the last 20 years, Vincentians appear unconvinced that in the post-disaster period, the distribution of the spoils, the distribution of the benefits derived from assistance from abroad are never equitable, and that there may well be reason enough to believe that they are consistent with political patronage of a most disturbing type. Ask the people in the communities. They know how many times some of the same people get lumber, galvanized concrete, cement and steel when we've had a disaster. Remember the complaints about people reporting that they were seeing some of these things sold because the people who got them did not need them. There must be a vociferous appeal on the part of the majority of Vincentians to heed the call of Heidi Badnock to make the Man Ages appeal for all hands on deck, because we have a country to build. The political sloganeering that we heard during the most recent general elections in this country must be cast aside as fanciful nonsense, political garbage. The ash of La Soufrière's most recent explosion should serve as a catharsis, a process of cleansing for every Vincentian. God has spared us the worst yet again. This is a time for us as a people to take the lead. Take the lead, people. Not allow political sycophants to use us to achieve their own selfish mercurial objectives. Take the lead. This is the time. This is the appeal. This is the moment. It is no longer acceptable, dear friends, for Vincentians to declare that the expenditures on relief and rehabilitative work are not our business. Of course, they are our business. They were sent for us as a people, not for a particular grouping. They were sent for the development of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They are our business. And the time has come for Vincentians to be engaged, fully engaged, in insisting upon receipt of, exposure to the details about how we arrive at the total cost of the damage wrought in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. When we were hearing $400 and something million the other day, what was the basis of that? Where was the itemizing of it? In record fire time, we have been able to determine the damage cost. Record fire time, as we have done after every damage. And almost after every damage, we have been proven wrong. Because we're doing guesstimates, not scientific analysis. And politicians often cannot help themselves, because disasters are an opportunity for politicians to seize the moment, because all of the assistance that you're getting from abroad, you make it known that it's only coming because of me, because of us. And therefore, after crises, governments tend to call elections, particularly if the country has done well in the aftermath of disasters. That's a norm. Why? Because as you have seen with every disaster we've had, once we've had disasters, resources come in. You get assistance to rebuild this, to do that, And if you play your cards right, you use it as a form of political largesse in order to garner support, because it was made possible because we are in charge. And that is the reason why in the early responses to COVID, and people looked in the region in particular that we were doing so well, watch how quickly they one after the other ran and had elections. Check the Eastern Caribbean. Check the Caribbean. One after the other, they hastened to have elections because they were benefiting from the initial responses to COVID. Now that the dust has settled, what happened? Got Trinidad and Tobago today, back in lockdown. Demanded by the business community. Imagine that. The business community has advised the Trinidad and Tobago government, the time come for you to put a state of emergency. And they say on Sundays, 24 hours curfew. The business community, the people who stand to lose economic-wise, have done that. That is the state of crisis because of poor political governance. You get St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the aftermath of the election. We threw caution to the wind because we wanted elections. We were doing so wonderfully well. And nobody comes and apologizes afterward because they don't want a link between the mass gatherings for general elections and the whole hullabaloo with regard to 9 mornings and Christmas as everything else. We start to cry foul. Everything happened after December 28th. Everything. Suddenly everything happened after December 28th. Rushed to have election because things look good. What we are saying is that is not the way to treat the rehabilitation process. Now more than ever, Vincentians, knowing the mode of operation of the ULP administration, monitor every single thing. Make every single thing known public. And let us demand the transparency and accountability that is necessary. There ought not to be any secrets. Vincentians must demand details about the disbursements of financial assistance and other forms of assistance, to whom and in what quantities and how frequently. Over the 20 years of the ULP government, we have found ourselves unable to determine the real value of the several social programs that were supposed to have been implemented. Follow the trend. More than everything else, since taking office, much has been said in support of the political value of we increase pension, we increase poor relief, we increase this, we increase that, we have poverty alleviation program, blah, 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 blah. All of that. We were on the cusp of economic takeoff. We have NASDAQ, we have this, we have that, we have all, just about everything. We're doing wonderfully well. But voila, the poverty assessment report for 2018 arrives. It's not released. People get wind of it. And we are told, oh, you'll probably get that in 2019. And it still didn't come out. And then in 2020, the document is leaked. And it ends up in the hands of the opposition and in the public domain. And so those who kept it quiet since it was completed for nearly 2 years suddenly find themselves back into a corner, Prime Minister and all, attempting to explain, well, you know, that has not undergone peer review. You just ask some people questions and they answer. Well, isn't that what happens with every survey? Don't we ask people questions? When you're doing your opinion polls to garner people's view about your chances of your political party, we don't just ask some people some questions and we take the answers. But clearly, when the answers don't seem to suggest how you see things or how you want things to be perceived, leave it there. Keep it down. So had the report not been released or leaked in 2020, almost 2 years after completion and sitting in government offices, we would not have heard the Prime Minister. Of course, he knows nothing about anything. He didn't know anything about it. For nearly 2 years, he knew nothing about the poverty assessment report. But he could now come and quote, and he read it from somebody else, because he knows nothing about this. Man who runs in the country for nearly 20 years, they know nothing about it. First time he hearing it, almost 2 years after the report has been completed. And that's what they tell me. It's always somebody else, isn't it? It is always somebody else. It is never him. He who in the beginning in 2001 told us that the Prime Minister meant that he is the one accountable. He is the first, and therefore he has to know everything about everything. Isn't he the one who put his mouth in the Yogi Farrell matter with his son? Isn't he the one who just the other day opened his mouth while telling other people they should shut up in respect of the issue with the Deputy Speaker of the House? But with regard to something as critically important as the state of poverty and indigence in St. Vincent and Grenadines, he didn't know for nearly 2 years. And so he had to ask them. So at community college, he appears to be reading from a document that they give him in response to his query about what is the state of this thing. And people trying to make politics out of it. You, for years, have been making politics out of the good work you claim to have been doing with regard to poverty alleviation. Out comes a report that suggests that Vincentians are getting poorer, that the number of people who are on the poverty line has increased, that the level of indigence has increased, and that some of the very people you are paying, like those in the YES program, are receiving wages below the poverty line. Where was the transparency? If that document had not been leaked, would it ever have seen the light of day? That's why we're saying it while we have international agencies here. We want them to hear how this country is governed. And that is why Badnoch is referencing the manage. We have a country to build. It cannot be built on partisanship. It cannot be built on political largesse. It can only be built if honestly we open our hearts and reach out our hands to each other without looking at the political party coloration, without looking at your color, without asking about your ethnic group, your sexual orientation, or your religion. That is the only way we can in fact build St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have had so many poverty alleviation programs that were touted by the government. Every time you give a little bit more money for poor relief, you tell the whole nation. Because you know, in spite of the criticisms you used to have for the NDP that they were the old people party, you know that you need the old people vote. So you keep boasting every time you put a $2 or $3 on the poor relief. That is a big thing for them because it could buy them things. We never forget, Remember the first year that you give public servants bonus? Said Eustace and them dealt you a bad hand, but you were able to pay off all our debts to UE and other institutions. But you had a bad hand. So where you get the money from? Right? In that very first year, remember, we offer people bonus, we offer public service bonus. Remember we say Christmas coming, it ain't much, but you might be able to buy a new pair of shoes or a new dress or a new... You remember all of that? And what happened to the bonus? It gone about the business. It gone about the business. People have come to recognize the political demagoguery and political dematrickery that obtains as governance in this country. The average Vincentian is left to conclude that the only reason that the poverty assessment report was not released may have been because it paints a sorry state of affairs of this country under the watch of a unity Labour Party that promised so much and delivered so little. Are we satisfied, for example, with the outcomes of our social welfare programs? This current administration, dear friends, loves to announce the amounts expended on social welfare packages, but seems to come up short where the deliverables are concerned. Why? Because talk is cheap. You could go and sit down on NBC radio and huddle yourself in a little corner, choke up in a corner, and talk, and talk, and talk, and talk. And then ask yourself questions and then answer your own questions. Enough of that. Enough of that. The administration loves to talk and appear to hope that people do not engage their critical thinking skills in respect of what is said to them. Somehow the broad issue of overall impact of the social welfare programs on the quality of life of Vincentians is never really adequately addressed in this country. There is need for accountability and transparency in an aspect of national development where evidence from across Latin America and the Caribbean reveals significant wastage and lack of accountability and transparency on the millions expended. The reports are there. You could go online and find them. Find the reports on the impact of social welfare in Latin America and the Caribbean. Recently, a professor in Jamaica has had to bring it to the attention of the Jamaican government. The level of wastage in the application of the resources made available under social welfare programs. Who are the beneficiaries in St. Vincent and the Grenadines of the Life to Live program? Let us go through the country. Publish the list. Publish the list. Put it in the newspapers. Let people know every single individual who has been a beneficiary of the Life to Live program. Let us see who they are. And let people know who they are related to and what political party orientation they have been in. Put it up. Put it up. Because you remember that after one crisis, we had the distribution centers of whatever we had bought, lumber, steel, galvanized, etc., etc., were actually constituency offices. Remember that? And in some cases, people who were responsible for distributing weren't even elected members of government. How have the beneficiaries of the Life to Live program been determined? And how have the expenditures been determined and accounted for? These are important questions. If we have a country to build, then we need to know how our already scarce, limited resources are being utilized. We must demand as a people to know who gets what and for what, and whether or not what they have received have been used for that purpose, or they do like the Prime Minister says, take a little bit from here and put it over there, take a little bit from over there, bring it over here, take a little bit from here and send it over there. This demand for knowing who gets what and for what, and whether they did what they were supposed to do, must be made of the international agencies that have come here to help, and not just from the government. They too must be accountable to us. The agencies sent you here to do a particular set of jobs. But not because we are the recipient country, we must not hold you to account. Of course we must. Of course we must. Remember, the Haitians challenged the United Nations, you know. When the discussion of cholera breaking out in Haiti after the earthquake, remember the Haitians challenged the United Nations and said, are you sure it wasn't that some people that you brought in? Aren't you sure? We must demand the same level of accountability from those international agencies that are here. Vincentians must demand full disclosure, full transparency and accountability from all involved, so that nothing about the rehabilitative process is hidden from us. We have a crisis of confidence in this country, in the current administration, in respect of how they address the real needs of Vincentians, all Vincentians, in the aftermath of a crisis. It is incredible to hear some of the stories being told by people in shelters. And while Just Another Look has been decidedly critical of the seeming intransigence of both the government, the Seismic Research Center, and whoever else, insofar as informing the Vincentian public about Soufri's activities as far back as the 16th November 2020, there was still enough time to prepare for the eventual eruption of 9 April. You know, when you argue and tell people, why weren't we told? You know what is their response? The party supporters? What would have been different? We are told from small, knowledge is power. Knowledge is important. And people telling you, well, where's your problem? Even though you didn't hear about the shakings of Soufri on the 16th of November. Even though you didn't hear or they didn't tell you about the rumblings and the registered earthquakes on the 23rd of December. Even though they didn't tell you about NASA and the hotspot discovered on the 27th of December, and that the Seismic Research Center asked NEMO to immediately ensure that there's a visual. Even though you didn't hear all of that, they're saying, even if you had the information, what difference would it have made? Imagine, they have the guts, the gumption to make them kind of stupid arguments, because they are stupid. Information is always important. That's why they have early warning systems. Because they recognize you can't just have a small segment of the society knowing that a disaster might be pending. Because the preparedness has to be extensive. It is that nonsense that created the problem that we had on the evening of the 8th of April 2021. And the stupidity of an individual, a member of government, standing up and telling people, this is not a drill. This is not a drill. Trying to tell them they must get vaccinated before they go into shelter. You have failed to adequately prepare a strategy for getting people vaccinated. But in the midst of a disaster, you tell them, hey, this is not a drill. This is not a drill. Yeah? That's why the people came back out and sit down on the side of the road. Well, if it's not a drill, you keep it, man. It's your place. You keep it. You keep it. That is how we run the country. No one who objectively analyzes the timelines between 29 December 2020 and 9 April 2021 could feel any sense of remorse for the incredible realities that have emerged. Why were shelters not all provided in those 3 months, 4 months, 3 months, with an adequate system of water storage? Okay, so let's forget November and December. Let's start from January. We did not know we needed water tanks. Now we have water tanks coming through our air. One can only hope that we have started putting them on all of the school buildings so that they can all have the benefit of adequate water storage, which they didn't have before. Remember that we were preparing to open schools on the 12th of April, you know. When since the 29th of December, we know that Soufriere bubbling. In December, they told us Soufriere was already in a stage of effusive eruptions. And that an explosive eruption was imminent. Soufriere had its own planning and blew up on the 9th, 3 days before school. So how much planning it took to be at once refitting classrooms for the restart of schools while knowing that those same classrooms would be needed should Soufriere erupt, as it eventually did. All of the time that we were guessing about the possible number of people who would need to be evacuated from the red zone and even the orange zone, we could easily have used available technology to better calculate the figures. You know, for elections, everybody anxious for the voters list, you know. You know why? Because they want to know how many people live there, how many people who could vote, living where. They find out where they live in. They go and they make sure they visit them, etc., etc. We must have had the information as to the number of households in the red zone and in the orange zone if need be. We know this for elections. We're supposed to know it from census data. When, for example, did you, listeners, you in the business community, when did you get the list from NEMO of their needs? Did you get it before or after the eruption? When suddenly it was as if NEMO perhaps thought he would manufacture these, how many cots, how many mattresses, how many water tanks out of thin air? Huh? You don't prepare for a crisis on the day of the crisis or after the crisis. But perhaps NEMO may have found itself doing exactly what they heard from the Prime Minister some years ago. We take a little bit from here and we put it over there. We take a little bit from over there and we put it over there. Maybe, just maybe, they thought that we could have done that because after all, we take some equipment from the modern center to bring it over there, didn't we? We had to take something from someplace else to bring because we put the modern diagnostic center in the zone, in the orange zone. Because we bright. And then afterwards you justify it, you know. You justify it. They want people to have a discussion as to the impact that you wanted it to have on your constituency and on the party's image within the constituency, which must have been a consideration. It's normal in politics, isn't it? You see, the point being made here, friends, is that we could have been significantly better prepared for the Soufriere eruption. And even now, with all the international agencies around us in abundance, there are still reasons for us to be decidedly bothered. Now that we have assistance pouring in from all quarters, now we are learning that we do not seem appropriately prepared for that as well as we should have been. And now we have an abundance of so many things to the point of much concern as to where we should put them. How do we distribute them in an equitable manner? What can be stored and for how long? In small societies, information travels very fast, incredibly fast. It is also true that in times of crisis, governments may well see that assistance being provided from outside sources as an excellent opportunity to trumpet this as having been rendered possible by dint of their leadership, when that may not be the case at all. Vincentians must therefore be particularly vigilant during these times. Now more than ever, truth, pure and unadulterated, must be rigorously pursued without fear of favor and without fear of contradiction. Now, Vincentians must ensure that our contribution to the rehabilitative process is at once free and fair, as much as it is free from fear. Yes, the manage is correct. We have a country to build. But this has to be done in a changed atmosphere, an atmosphere of trust, an atmosphere of confidence. 20 years of the UAP administration has left the electoral majority of Vincentians saddened but not broken. The experience of La Soufriere's eruption earlier this year should leave us all eager to grasp Ms. Badenoch's appeal to join the chorus of the manager's epic calypso and commit to building the country we call home. The time has come for Vincentians to stand up and shout at the top of their voices, St. Vincent and the Grenadines is no one's plantation. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is no one's personal fiefdom. Vincentians cannot and must not allow themselves to be cowed into submission by any politician, let alone a political party. This is a time for full disclosure of truth from the government. The Prime Minister cannot be allowed to speak willy-nilly about the matter that is being investigated, in which the Deputy Speaker and the Deputy DPP are quote-unquote persons of interest. He cannot be allowed to do so and expect that Vincentians would take him seriously when he says people should just shut up. Just shut up a bit. Who gives him that right? It is your right to speak. Freedom of speech is a guaranteed right under the Vincentian Constitution. That somehow he feels it, that he's somehow empowered to tell people just shut up a bit. while he may see himself as the Papa, to whom all must eventually return, regardless of whichever courts they go to initially, the reality is not in sync with his perception, and perhaps not in sync with his intent. Already, we have had too much time pass before the matter involving the shooting of Mr. Cornelius John to be brought into the public domain. By the time you were hearing it around the place, more than a week had passed. Why? Why? Normally when there's a shooting, an altercation of any sort, it reaches the news media immediately. And you are informed of persons of interest. You informed of all of that, and that an investigation is taking place, and that people are invited to provide information that they may have as to cause or as to the event itself. Not this time. How long it took before the shooting of Mr. Cornelius John reached the public domain. And it wasn't the police who bring it. So far as we know, no charges have been laid. How long now the investigation taking place? The weeks are piling up, right? The weeks are piling up. And we're getting no response about the investigation. But you have not just the Prime Minister putting his mouth in it, but you have the Commissioner of Police saying, from what he's hearing and what he's reading, the comments are politically motivated. He's now that kind of an analyst, right? That is the kind of analyst he is now. But perhaps he could tell us, since his job is policing, why the public weren't called upon for information relating to the shooting. Why we have not had any information on the investigation. Why is it taking so long? Because here what? Just as people are asking and demanding transparency and accountability, not just of government in the post-disaster situation, but also of the agencies that have come here to help rehabilitate the country. So too, Vincentians are being asked for accountability and transparency in this particular case. They want accountability and transparency. Remember what happened in the end with the Yogi Farrell case? Quash. All of the Prime Minister and the family members said, quash. Nothing come out of it. And that we know of. The emotional damage that may have been caused to Yogi Farrell on the one hand and to Camilo's wife and child on the other. Emotional damage we don't know about. But there must have been. There must have been. Because it came out in the open and nobody had denied. But there must be emotional damage. So why is the investigation taking so long? Why did the Prime Minister, a decades-old lawyer, make the pronouncement that he did when he did on the matter? Ms. Jomo Thomas is correct in his analysis that the Prime Minister knew exactly what he was doing when he spoke on the matter. And Jomo asked the question, can justice be served now that the Prime Minister has said what he did? Who, we ask, will take responsibility at the end of the day if justice is not served? If justice is not served, who takes responsibility? Who? Perhaps the system has already been turned on its head because we found out in the case of Glenn Jackson's brutal murder that his wife was appealing for justice. And she specifically says she did not want scapegoat justice. Well, guess what? That is all she got. Scapegoat justice. they have not yet found the killer. And that was in 2006, 15 years ago. 15 years ago. And he was supposed to be big in the party. Public Service Union President Boucher is correct in showing the gross disparity in how we apply laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Because in this case, if it was somebody else who got shot, or somebody else's name was called in association with the shooting, what would have happened? But the man who would be king could call in on a radio station and say what he would have done if he were in position with his gun and met the person, met Pan Paper Alexander. Nothing came out of that. Nothing. The Prime Minister is accused of rape. Case is nulli pros. Nulli pros. He wouldn't tell the nation why he hadn't gone Canada since that very first time. Parliamentary representative for North Leeward now, Carlos James, fired off a gun in the public. They've been asking, was the gun his? Did he have a firearm license at the time? Nothing come out of that. Not even a police investigation. Yeah? You have a case now, the Prime Minister come out and run him out but tell other people they must shut up a bit. And the Commissioner of Police saying from what he reading and what he hearing is politically motivated. What is politically motivated? What people are saying? They'll have a man endangering his own life and they lock him up. But people shoot a man and nobody get locked up. Nobody get charged. And weeks going on and we have an investigation. It's still at the investigative stage. But the commissioner could go ahead and say, from what he's reading and what he's hearing, politically motivated. What is? The man who got shot and who is sure that he was threatened by the senator seems to have a position that is consistent with the comments of Badnoch and the man age. This is what John is quoted as having said to Eyewitness News in their edition of 20th May 2021. We quote, "I feel disgraceful for the way I support them and people in the party. At least I don't know where they come from. Just come and do this kind of thing. So I say, a party you support, looking to say we are gonna take St. Vincent forward, we have a nation to build. It really shocked me because that is not my idea of building a nation." Slap that in the middle of what Badnoch just wrote and have reference to what Age has been telling us for a long time. We have a country to build. The man who gets shot tell you how long he's been supportive of Gonzales and of the party. In that article of 20th May 2021 in Eyewitness News, he recounted as far back as he could remember. He goes back to the days of Ulimo and his support for them. He goes back for the first time he voted for them. He goes back to his being engaged in a protest that was held in Brighton when the Mitchell administration was seeking to do a housing plan in Diamond. He was there with them and for them. And this appears to be his payback. This is what he gets for that he had been shot And weeks on end, there is still an investigation. Not even a charge has been laid. So I say, this is him, a party you support, looking to say we're going to take St. Vincent forward. We have a nation to build. It really shocked me, because that is not my idea of building a nation. John was at the time essentially dismissing the Prime Minister's stance in respect of the comments that the Prime Minister made on the 4th of May on the reported shooting incident. Remember what Gonzalez said? Quote, "So what do you expect? There are 2 women. In this country, there's a lot of violence against women. And it is a good thing to see somebody is standing up to defend women." End of quote. That is what the Prime Minister said. And John, the man who got shot, who feels it and knows it, says, that to me sounds like something you're trying to whip up somebody. You're trying to activate people to say, oh yeah, woman abuse, and you're glad. That is something you are trying to activate. That is how I look at it. John continues. He was making an excuse, he meaning the Prime Minister. He was making an excuse. But at the same time he making an excuse, he tried to get support from women to say, oh, it's a good thing that women step up to support women, when there was no abuse. There was no abuse. That is the man who gets shot telling you that. So Just Another Look is saying there, friends, that as listeners, we have found ourselves now understanding how some party members feel when things fall in their own kitchen, as it were. This is not the first time. It's interesting, because who feels it knows it. Not so long ago, you had Richard Brown, police officer, senior police officer, finding himself he is a known supporter of the party. Everybody knows about Richard Brown and his writings on Facebook and whatever else, social media. Very supportive of the party. But when the thing fell in his own kitchen and his own family with regard to the COVID testing and the results and the this and the that, he felt it necessary to expose it to the nation. We're not sure of his motivation, but we know that he remains a supporter of the party and of the Prime Minister. But he felt it necessary to expose what was happening and let the Vincentian public know that all ain't going well. Now you may ask, if nothing had happened to his family, if it wasn't his family that had gotten into that, because other people were telling the same story, starting with patient 0. Right? He didn't go public with any comments about patient 0's comments. But when it came to his own family, he went public. Yeah? John, ditto. He tells you how long he's been supporting Gonzalez. How long he's been supporting the ULP since it formed. He goes back to the days that Ulimo and comes forward. But now, it happened to him. His own personal experience of being shot. And after weeks, nobody arrested. An investigation going on. And hearing the Prime Minister making some comments. And he finds it necessary to raise his challenge, to raise his voice, as more Vincentians are doing today. To raise his voice and say, That to me sounds like something you're trying to whip up somebody. You're trying to activate people to say, oh yeah, woman abuse, and you're glad. That is something you are trying to activate. That's how I look at it. It goes on, he was making an excuse, but at the same time he making an excuse, he trying to get support from women to say, oh, it's a good thing that women step up to support women, when there was no abuse. There was no abuse. Nobody has produced any evidence of abuse. The only person who seemed to get abused in the whole situation is Cornelius John, because he got shot. So now Cornelius John finds himself in the same place as Richard Brown, a strong supporter of Gonzales, the ULP and the government. But he finds himself now having to declare that what happened to him and who are apparently involved leaves him in a major quandary. He knows, like Badnoch and the manage, that we have a country to build. He knows that. But equally, he is now forced to rethink what he is seeing around him and the changing nature of how party supporters and party government appointees may act in dissonance with the so-called progressive agenda that he, Cornelius John, grew up knowing and endorsing. John is not alone. Like a seeming ever-increasing number of Vincentians, what the party has become is no longer tenable for them. He is a supporter, even risking being shot and possibly killed for calling the name of one of the individuals who told him, if you call my name, I'm going to shoot you, according to his account. He can no longer remain silent. He already got shot. They make no difference. They make no difference. So John, like Brown and like so many Vincentians, they demand transparency and accountability in respect of what has happened. John is asking for that. That is his demand. Be transparent. Be accountability. Tell me what happened with my shooting. What then is left for those who dare to openly engage in critical thinking about what is offered to us as governance under the Gonzales ULP leadership? What is left? The average Vincentian, therefore, after hearing the Commissioner of Police parroting the Prime Minister's comments on the matter, cannot have much confidence that anything would come out of the matter. But should this prove to be so, Vincentians may well give up on both our system of justice and confidence in the national security system of this country. The Christian Council lived up to expectations by issuing a statement that really says nothing of significance. Nothing. The statement reflects that crass timidity that characterizes an institution that should otherwise be leading the vociferous demand for justice instead of what we get, the namby-pamby, rather tame couple of sentences that read, Christian Council, the SVG Christian Council is aware of the serious allegations made regarding a shooting incident that purportedly involved two public figures whose offices are of significance in key institutions of law and order and democracy. The Council encourages all citizens regarding this and other such matters to resist the temptation of trial by media and strongly urges the investigations and appropriate actions be pursued with utmost diligence and swiftly. We believe as well that justice must needs be done, and every effort should be made to ensure that justice is seen to be done, as this is critical to national well-being. End of quote. And what they say there? What they say there? Really? What is the Christian Council stance? You know, Christian Council need perhaps to go back and read the Bible. Christ took up the scroll, beginning of his public life, and read his mandate. And Christians believe that that is the mandate of all Christians. Bring news, good news to the poor. Set prisoners free, etc., etc. That's the mandate. That's the mandate. Did he not stand up and say to the authorities, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's? He was fearless. Fearless in the face of governmental authorities who thought that they had all power. And as he reminded them, all power comes from God. What power do you have? Really? Whatever you think you may have is transitory. So you flex your muscles and you behave blah, 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 blah. The right of the Christian is to fight forever for justice, for fairness. And you have to understand that that is what we demand of the Christian Council, not this namby-tamby thing that they tell us here. They're telling us about a shooting incident. They don't know the name of the man who got shot. They don't know what incident we are talking about. You give us a namby-pamby paragraph. What are you saying to your Christian followers, really, in this sentence? We phrase things. We often talk about a presentation, at the end of which people say, boy, that song real good. Real good. And then you ask for a critical analysis, and the man comes back and he says, what you just heard was nothing more than a supercilious ostentation of erudite vacuity. In other words, you've had a very grandiose, nice-sounding paragraph, but it is actually emptiness expressed with flair. The absence of any genuine content. But it is so well said that you applaud, not recognizing that you actually said nothing that people could use or sink their teeth in. So for whom was this intended? For whom was this intended? Some university scholars? Certainly not the average man in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Because the average man in St. Vincent and the Grenadines want you to say, we are leaders in the cause of Christianity, demanding justice, equity, fairness, accountability, and transparency in public life in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That is what you're supposed to be saying. But it seems as though the Christian Council is a toothless cat. It's not even a toothless tiger. It is just a regular domestic cat. The aforementioned document says absolutely nothing and does not even suggest that the organization is aware that it has some authority in a Christian society. This is in stark contrast to the mandate that Christ knew he had and which he later gave to his disciples. Our religious leaders cannot be allowed to kowtow to the politicians, regardless of how powerful the politicians may consider themselves to be. And the man who gets shot has something to say about that, Listen to John, Cornelius John, quoted in Eyewitness News. John says, and we quote, "We say we are a God-fearing nation, And I would like to say to the Christians in the community in St. Vincent who say they know God and love God, as one who is part of them, but not just saying Christians by name, especially those who say they are Holy Ghost filled and filled with the Spirit of God, to get up and do something. That's right there. To get up and do, that's what he said Wednesday of this week. That's what he had to say Wednesday of this week. Yeah? And then he goes on, because if you are filled with the Spirit of God, the word says that if a builder builds a nation and God is not the head of the building, you are building it in vain. The watchman that watched a city, if God is not part of the watching, your watching is in vain. This is Cornelius John, the man who got shot. The Christian Council should read this and spend a few hours reflecting on it. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. John concludes, so if we say we are a Christian nation, and the Christians are there, and hear this thing happen, and sit down and do nothing about it, I will say to them, who is next? End of quote. Do you understand? That is the society we are today. And John's courage and heroism, because many people having already been shot, being threatened that if you call my name, I'll shoot you in your mouth. And he continues to speak. He speaks fearlessly because he's a man of God. He speaks fearlessly, having already been shot and threatened to be shot in the mouth. Speaks fearlessly because he's a man of God. That's what we want the Christian Council to understand. Here is a man of God. This is a man of God. This is a man of faith. That is the message. That is what faith does for a man. He is beyond what we want in our society. He has shown himself to be fearless because for him, he's in the sight of God. And so his message is as applicable to the Christian Council of this country as much as it is applicable to all of us in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And the Christian Council and the Christian community must ask and answer the question, are we surrogates of the political administration? Importantly, is the Christian Council today a surrogate of the political administration? Does the Christian Council understand its role in a society like ours, given what is stated in the Bible, the same Bible that they advocate we all accept? We live, dear friends, in a Vincentian society today characterized by adhocracy after the fact. We live in a Vincentian society today characterized by a total absence of vision. We live in a Vincentian society today characterized by demagoguery and political mamagism. We live in a Vincentian society today characterized by political decadence of the highest order. The time has come for Vincentians to allow themselves to be cleansed by the ash of the latest Soufriere eruption, as Badenoch has asked us to do. We must now act decisively. We must now allow the politicians to know and understand that they are answerable to us, the electorate, not the other way around. The power you have has been given to you by the electorate. Badenoch reminds us that Soufriere may well have given us a reprieve of sorts, and appeals to us to grab hold of the experience and use it to re-examine ourselves, to retool ourselves, to refocus ourselves, and to restart the process of building a new St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Indeed, Badenoch is very astute and very correct in appealing to us to engage in that important catharsis, that self-reflection, that self-analysis, and that steeped in faith, we can re-emerge from that catharsis to restart the process all anew, motivated by the words of the man age: we have a country to build. You know, friends, today, the 22nd day of May 2021, marks 5,251 days since the disappearance of SVG Air J8VAX, piloted by Dominic Gonzalez with Rashid Ibrahim on board. They disappeared in an SVG Air aircraft coming from Canouan on a Sunday evening. Nothing unusual about the weather. And it was Rashid Ibrahim's mother that brought to the attention even of the owners of SVG Air, the Coast Guard, and the government of the Vincent and Grenadines, that the plane went missing. And of course, initially they didn't believe her. Our Nisha Branca. Initially, they did not believe her. To this day, we have no real understanding of what happened on that fateful day, the 19th of November, Sunday afternoon, the 19th of November. The last known record is that the plane was over Beckwith, coming to the E.T. Joshua Airport, and informing the tower that they had seen a Liat aircraft and they will give way and allow the Liat aircraft to land ahead of it. That interaction between Dominic Gonzalez and the Liat pilot is the last bit of information that they had on that plane. The Nambi-Pambi report that we got is not worth the paper it was typed on. but the administration made much of it. But just under 4 years later, on Thursday the 5th of August 2010, another LVGA aircraft, J8SXY, disappeared without a trace. Suresh Lakram, the pilot, was home, off duty, called to conduct a mercy mission. Disappeared without a trace. Never reached Canouan. The flight from Canouan, Dominic Gonzalez, and they never reached St. Vincent. Just inside 4 years later, the flight from St. Vincent to Canouan never reached Canouan. But we've never gotten a report of the same magnitude as we got for J8VAX, which essentially said nothing. But it is what it is. It's 3,941 days since that second aircraft disappeared. 2 aircrafts, same company, same sort of incident. Planes disappeared without a trace. And then to add insult to injury, on the 19th of September 2008, Patricia Bowman, in heavy, bad weather, driving to go to work. And just as you're coming around by what used to be CSY, the lagoon there, to slow down now to turn to go down Canache, the wall of the building on the left collapsed on her car, crushing her to death. If there is a report, we haven't seen it. Maybe you have. What we know is that her husband, Alban Bowman, keeps hoping and praying that one day justice may be served. But God only knows if and when that will ever happen. Enough said. You've been listening to another edition of Nice Radio's Callaloo presentation, Just Another Look. Just Another Look is an innovative, exciting, albeit decidedly provocative, and yes, certainly controversial, socio-political analysis of issues of a local, regional, and international nature. Just Another Look is heard only on Nice Radio. First aired on Saturdays at 6 p.m. with repeat broadcasts on Sundays at 9 p.m. Remember, you can catch us on the World Wide Web, www.niceradio.info. We are also available on Facebook and YouTube. I am, of course, Keith Joseph.
Blessed country has seen its best days. Just look at it now, it's torn to pieces. How did we get to this point? There's no mystery. We wasted a lot of years simply mashing up the country. How can we put the pieces together that will redeem this land? I say yes, we can, my brother, but not until we understand we got a country to build. And if we don't do it, who will? We gotta come up with some kind of plan to salvage what's left of our nation. So we ain't got no time to chill.
Beside that disapparent body of Bay Hill News Network, we do Facebook Live for church service, funeral service, lecture, sporting activity. For more, contact at bayhillnewsnetwork@gmail.com or call 1784-529-8340.
St. Vincent, my homeland,
On April the 9th, 2021, Lasso Fury volcano in St. Vincent and the Grenadines violently erupted, and the words of Black Stallion came flowing through.
For the country nation, it's got its power. So our people need us today more than ever. But in our fight to recover, if ever you feel to surrender, it have one little thing that I want you always remember.
My name is Jim Lewis, President of St. Vincent and the Grenadines Association, Toronto, Inc., and I encourage you to donate generously.
I love you, St. Vincent. Me sweet little island, St. Vincent.
Now with ice-cold local juices to go with our rich and tasty authentic Vincentian meals made affordable, it's the award-winning Phoenix Kitchen, open 7 days with extended hours on Friday and Saturday. Juices include Marby, lemon lime, passion fruit, bell apple, golden apple, cherry, mango, Marby, linseed, carrot, beetroot, fruit punch, and sea moss. For further information, call 455-1280. That's right, a bigger meal awaits you now with fresh, cold local juices. Phoenix Kitchen. Let the phoenix arise in you.
Great news! Spectra Plus is now rolling out internet and TV services in St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Yes, better service and better prices from the new and improved Spectra Plus. Spectra Plus TV plans for $59.99 per month, VAT included. Adult TV 3 channels plus $29.99. For more information, call 1784-534-2551 or 1784-532-2501. Fast, reliable broadband and television services for your home or business. Spectra Plus TV, internet, better. Ship your barrels and household effects to St. Vincent and the Grenadines with SVG Direct. Jumbo barrels $70, medium $60, and small $50. We ship anything, name it, we ship it. Vehicles and more. Local agent, Adams Customs and Shipping Agency. 3rd floor, Baines Building, Kingstown, SVG. Telephone 1784-458-1328. In Canada, contact Michael 647-569-3285. Jambi 647-657-7362. Remember, it's free pickup at your convenience 7 days per week anywhere in the Greater Toronto area with SVG Direct.